Humble flex time. Didn't I tell you guys Robin Hood Champion of Sherwood was going to be good? Well, even I couldn't have predicted it would have been this good. Because as more and more days go by and we see more tournament results get posted, one thing seems to be common, or more common, in these tournament tops, and that is the prevalence of steel. There are currently 4 out of the 5 other ink colors that seem to pair very well with steel. What you're seeing and what you will see in this video if you watch it out is me use Amber Steel Song, Sapphire Steel Ramp, Emerald Steel, I guess you can call it discarded, but it's more of like an Ursula Song build. And what is the final combination again? We've used blue, green, yellow, oh, of course, and Amethyst Steel, which is possibly the strongest out of all of them, despite it being kind of underrepresented. Steel is proving to be a problem, and one of the main reasons why is because of that card that just sung Grab Your Swords right there, the Robin Hood. Even in a matchup that Steel Song supposedly struggled with a lot in Rise of the Floodborn and should still struggle with in this new INKLANDS meta, here you can see my opponent giving the thanks once I've overextended into a Be Prepared, but we're still going to be able to come out on top because earlier on in the game I ended up aerialing one of my Whole New Worlds to the bottom of the deck since I had one in hand, and I think I aerialed 2 more times knowing that once I get down to the final few cards in my deck that I will be able to Whole New World into a Whole New World. So you'll see what happens if you kind of keep an eye out. But these steel decks, just from their inherent removal spells, like what you see in my hand right there with Strength the Raging Fire, Let the Storm Rage On, we've got a new addition in Then Along Came Zeus, Grab Your Swords, and the tempo control card Whole New World are all very powerful tempo swinging cards, which is why it pairs so well with Amber and the singers that it has. But in addition, you have some inherently powerful cards in steel. We know that the best legendaries in the game in Beast Tragic Hero and now what seems to be Robin Hood Champion of Sherwood are also in this ink color. We used to think Rapunzel was good. Well, Beast Tragic Hero kind of takes a step up from that. And we thought Ursula was going to be the I don't want to say all powerful, but it was going to be really good. And it is really good, but it's proving that Robin Hood is maybe just a step ahead because of the other utility cards that Steel offers you that Emerald do not. So here you can see the Whole New World, the board presence that we're able to establish. Now my opponent is getting into that realm of I can't deal with your board because of the Cogsworth. You're getting all this ink. Whatever am I going to do? Well, you're going to see me hover over my opponent's deck a few times because I was keeping track of what they had left. And they're thinking to themselves they're going to win the game off of these locations, getting them 2 lore at the start of the next 2 turns here. But I already know 13 cards left in the deck. I'm going to Whole New World into a Whole New World, so I don't even bother playing anything. I just cast this and draw a fresh 7, and there it is, the second Whole New World. They have 6 left in deck, and we win the game. So these grindy games, Steel also has a way to mill you out and win. What's even more messed up is that with all these ink combinations with Steel, like with Amber, if you start off with a turn 1 Cinderella and you have a Let the Storm Rage On, you're nuking whatever your opponent plays on turn 1 themselves, and you're maintaining card advantage. It's just really, really strong. And in this pairing you see with Amethyst and Steel, I go first and I have the dreaded Captain Hook and Robin Hood, and I'm opting to ink the Captain Hook and the Pinocchio follow-up to tap down whatever they play on turn 1 if I wanted. Arguably, I could have played the Captain Hook here if I wanted better control, but I'm valuing the Shift Robin Hood because, hey, that's just how powerful it is. The opponent starts off with a Pluto, the Lantern on legs, and at a 0-2, I'm just like, oh man, I feel really bad for that because the Robin Hood is going to take it out for free with the Pinocchio there. Like, it can be so demoralizing going up against a strong Steel build because you know that Shift Robin Hood is coming. The opponent establishes a Lantern and we draw into the newest tech card that's being used these days in Rise of the Titans. There's absolutely no way I ink that Fox because it represents tremendous value getting that Pinocchio back and cycling a tap down. So we're going to go ahead and take out the opponent's Lantern, quest for 2, and just whatever the opponent is playing, we are just outing, no problem. They know the Shift Robin Hood is likely coming on turn 3, and they're going to opt to set up for an aerial to hopefully grab a song that they need. They grab Bare Necessities, and of course they can't play it, but even if they do, they're not going to grab anything from it. We're of course going to Shift Robin Hood on 3, and then ink that hook after questing, keeping our Pinocchio unexerted, so that we can bounce it back with the Fox potentially. The opponent Bare Necessities and sees a Beast and a Mim Fox. They ink another Bare Necessities and drop the Mickey Mouse, which is quite interesting. Top decking a whole new world here is absolutely insane when the opponent knew we had this line. So we're going to be able to take out their entire board here once again. And I think after this, the opponent just scoops, which is unfortunate because we would have been able to hold new world into advantage next turn. But it is what it is. So yeah, I can understand. So you might be asking yourself, well, what really pushes Steel over the edge to be such a good ink pairing right now into the Inklands metagame? In my opinion, when you look at the Steel package and its ability to remove things early and into the mid game with things like Let the Storm Rage On, Strength of a Raging Fire, Smash, and then along came Zeus, Grab Your Swords, and tempo resets with a whole new world, all of those cards can support other ink pairings very, very well. An Emerald Steel discard deck can maintain and establish its discard board while still dealing with your threats. We all know the synergy between Amber Steel songs because Amber can set up their singers and sing those Steel songs, which is why it's such a good deck. Sapphire Steel Ramp can continue ramping and reset the hand with a whole new world, shift out early targets in either Cogsworth, which they don't usually shift, but they can now with the Robin Hood for sure, and sing out those Grab Your Swords and board control cards early. And the Amethyst Steel package, well, they just draw a ton of cards, and then they're going to have endless amounts of removal. So there's a lot of synergy to be had with Steel for the sheer fact that it's one of the few colors, the other being Ruby, but Ruby is more mid to late game, that actually help you establish the game plan that your deck is going for. And Steel in and of itself is inherently very strong because of that Singer 5 on a whole new world and Grab Your Swords. And that's exactly why things like Robin Hood and the Beast Tragic Hero are so good for. But in this matchup, you can see that we're just going to race our opponent here. And while the locations could be a problem, well, they just gave Steel an answer to that as well in Rise of the Titans, which in my opinion should have been a Ruby card. But hey, let's just give it to Steel because they need more gas at this point. We're going to go into the final matchup, and I'll wrap up my thoughts by using a Sapphire Steel deck. So the next match I'm going to show you is a Sapphire Mirror, but my opponent is using Amber, which is cool and fun, and I'm using Steel. Now, right away, I'm on the play, they're on the draw, I'm using Steel, they're not. I mean, I wanted to show this match for a particular reason, because I think one of the ways that Ravensburger can fix this issue with overpowered individual ink colors and shake up the metagame quite heavily and potentially fix the going first problem is not introducing interruptions just yet, because I don't know if they think that's going to make the game more complicated if you're trying to play during your opponent's turn and, you know, people are shuddering maybe at that fact of, you know, MTG and Yu-Gi-Oh! But I think they should introduce dual ink color cards for set 4. So they should introduce a very powerful card that has to be played in a or can only be played in a Sapphire Amber deck. A Sapphire Steel deck cannot play it. I think that would be really cool, and it would give them the ability to really boost the power level of certain ink combinations that aren't meta or aren't necessarily X and Steel or X and Ruby, right? Because Ruby was also kind of the go-to color for removal in set 1 and kind of in set 2. I don't think we saw very much Steel in set 2, right? If I recall, it was mostly Ruby Amethyst, a few Emerald Steel discard, a few Amber Steel song. But yeah, I mean, well, Sapphire Steel was pretty good still. But I mean, again, you can just see with every new set that comes out, Steel is bound to have a couple of good cards, and really that's all it needs, because the arsenal that Steel has as of Rise of the Floodborn is just absolutely insane. Like Beast Tragic Hero is super expensive, and while I've done market watches on Inklands, like maybe I should do a retrospective and show you guys how the Inkland cards and the metagame of Inklands now is affecting previous like legendaries and supers and rares and stuff from other sets. Because while I already kind of predicted during the reveals that like Maui would be shooting up in price, I think it's like a $10 Canadian card now compared to like $5 during the like Rise of the Floodborn meta before Inklands was kind of getting its reveals done. And Beast Relentless as well, right? Like that card has shot up, but you've just seen just a complete paradigm shift in the metagame, and it seems that more and more people are going to be on Steel. So in this scenario here, my opponent is trying to establish a decent setup, right? They're ahead on ink, they've got a decent board, but we have this Robin Hood that's really stopping them from kind of doing anything. and we draw the grab your swords, and this combined with the small Robin Hood is an easy potential board wipe. And what's even more broken with steel is that I don't even have to spend my ink to do this. I just sing and then tap down and I get rid of the singer. They're left with an OD, which isn't really a problem, and I'm going to be drawing 2 cards at the start of my next turn, and it's only inevitable or a matter of time before I draw the whole new world and gain advantage off of that, because look at the board state. And because of that, my opponent ends up scooping it up. If you enjoyed this video and this commentary, I know I didn't really present too many solutions, but let me know in the comment section below as usual. And of course, let me know what you want to see next. And yeah, I'll be back to posting content regularly. Thank you again for watching. If you made it this far, Quantum is out.